Okay, so I think Zarkov here, he shot up a video here a couple days ago called the War on Neuroscience, and it was basically a video giving a background in neuroscience to maybe really give some hard science to dispel people who still want to believe in some kind of trans-empirical soul and suggest that because there is no trans-empirical soul, they will never be able to create some sort of data-like person, that is the Star Trek data character. I wanted to say I enjoyed that video quite a bit. I found Zarkov's presentation and engagement to be just wonderful, especially the weaving together of the different elements and the concerns. I guess from my own perspective, I would just want to raise these issues or these concerns to both of the Veritatis I think you were picking on, and if I'm correct here, and I think the way I would say it is this. First off, data is a bad metaphor. That's a bad thing to go to because data has all kinds of things. He doesn't have the emotion chip. He can't say contractions. There's all kinds of little glitchy things about him. People are always going to say it's a cheap knockoff. So that I don't know if I'd even want to say that. I think the way that I would come at your question though is I would get sociopolitical on it rather than individual and inward on it. Look at the way that the legal system in the US is now giving corporations the same rights as persons. It allows them, like persons, to own certain things, to have various political representation by way of money that no single person could compete with, and yet it's treated as a person. The question of what will happen as people create cyborg and or as people become cyborg, as more and more people blur the boundary between the fabricated neural net and the already existing neural net, I think as all that stuff starts to happen, people are right to have concerns. Now, I don't think their concerns should be, oh, woe is the, there needs to be a trans-empirical soul or you need something like that. I think there is, though, a, what would you say? There is a question of harmony, interests, and the question of can an organism feel itself. I mean, there is something like I think we would want to say freedom. Now, if you're going to say you're going to program the computer to have freedom, that is it's an interesting argument. I think the question of do humans need to feel something like the gift character of existence? Do they need to feel as if there's some way socially related to the world in a emotional bonding way that includes touch? Now, I shot a video a while back on could a robot ever give a hug? And I don't mean physically, could you program one, but is there something that we don't yet understand about tactility, about the kinds of communication that are operating at the level of the haptic and the kinesthetic and the somatic? Some animals lick each other, and there are chemicals that are conveyed in that. And when we touch one another, you're actually having molecular interbindings, ontogenetic coupling, structural coupling. I think Monterano and Varela would use some language like this. Um, these larger questions, though, I think the people who are dogmatically attending to some notion of a trans-empirical soul, they should be focusing on questions like the meaning of freedom. Is there a sense of freedom? Now, not whether we are free or aren't free, don't we experience ourselves as free, and what does that mean? I think the other questions really are about, I guess, we want to say that there's something about not being created. I mean, it's really odd that atheists who forever and ever have made fun of creationist arguments, and they really want to say you don't need a creator, and yet now they want to take the prerogative to suggest that they're going to be the equivalent of someone who create a human. I mean, there's something very odd there. There's something very presumptuous about it. There seems to be a fractal-like arrogance that's spinning out of the idea that it could be done, I think to the person who thinks that you really could create a human, I hope that that person is very prepared to have their daughter marry that person and or to shack up with that person themselves. I mean, if it really would be a Turing test kind of sensibility, when people no longer can tell the difference, and we don't have to ask, are you cyborg or are you not? I mean, some people would say right now, okay, we spin this totally differently. We could say some people, Catherine Hales, my mother was a computer, and there's Ray Kurzweil stuff, all stuff on the singularity, the growing rubbing over of the distinction between the natural and the artificial. What happens though is that you don't, how do I say it? Even if we agree that ultimately everything is natural, I mean, no longer can you say, well, this is natural, this isn't natural, because those boundaries are starting to erode. You can still posse up resources for saying that the kinds of cyborgs or the kind of neural net computers that will be created, that I think it's going to be able to do math and cold either or calculations in a very unfeeling way, and it might be very technologically equipped in those regards. I think it's a fairly frightening thought. I think it's not that I'm against it, it's I think I really know deep down that this is something that I'd really want to know what I was doing before I got involved in it, and I'm not sure that the people who are involved in this really, I mean, they obviously do, right, to some extent. In another sense, it's I mean, you're sort of suggesting, Zerkov, in some way that we could make a person, and what you would do is a person would be a creation rather than just a biological place and moment of the universe that is continuous and emerged from it, but it was actually created and designed by a single person. Now, if that would actually happen, it would be odd. I mean, imagine the all the humans are extinct, and now all the humans are extinct, but there are some of these cyborgs who are around, and they're cybernetically procreating, and they would worship a guy who actually created them, and there would be a creator. Very odd. Anyway, I enjoy your video. Thanks a lot. Okay, bye.